Holy shit, here we are.
Here we are again.
How are we doing?
Yeah, good. The
Good.
uh, the time's flown by.
I know. I don't know about you, but like literally since we stopped on Monday, I've just been like buzzing. I've just been so excited, like looking forward to doing this again.
Yeah, I've just been wanting to talk about football pretty much. It's when you're basically quarantined by yourself and you're kind of stuck to watching Premier League years again and again on Sky Sports.
Oh, dude.
You
Isn't that
kind of
like
think
the
like
best
I need to
program?
talk about it. I love it. Yeah, I just love watching old football when you know bad things are going to happen to teams you don't like as well. So you're just like waiting for it,
So, what's the
waiting
best
for
game
it.
you've watched recently then on Premier League years?
Oh God, games are difficult, but I suppose seasons. I loved. It's basically it's going to be some Chelsea seasons,
Oh,
but
here we go.
again, but I think I love the 2010 with Ancelotti. That's probably my favourite one because I think at the end of it, we're just scoring goals for fun. So that's always
Yeah,
good
yeah.
fun to watch.
Who was your
Um,
front line then? You still had Drogba.
Drogba, we played two up front really towards the end of it. So Drogba and Elka really was the
Holy
strike
shit!
partnership.
Yeah, Nelka. Fuck. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, cool. Right. Let's do a quick intro to this because I kind of want to get the people involved in the chat. We're just getting set up by the looks of it. We haven't got many people watching. Not many people are tuned in just yet. So I know we're expecting some more. I've been doing my best to try and push this so we can get some good debates going on today because you come up with that awesome idea. Obviously, after the last stream where you said about today, obviously being St George's Day, we should maybe try and focus a little bit on some of England's fortunes, certainly in our lifetime, some of the best games, some of the best performances, and obviously there's going to be that huge debate on who has arguably been England's best player. I'm thinking sort of Premier League era. I don't want to go before the Premier League era because once again we didn't kind of grow up with that.
yeah,
We can probably sit, for me, Bobby Charlton's probably the greatest England player of all time, but I never got to watch him week in, week out. I didn't grow
sure.
up with him necessarily. It's all kind of archive footage and what I've seen growing up. Um, I don't know how you feel about that, whether we should be talking of all time or whether we should just be talking about the Premier League era. What do you think?
I think it's certainly fair to acknowledge the players before we existed.
Yeah.
What they've done for England and English football.
Yeah.
Some of them aren't with us anymore, sadly. But
Yep.
you've pretty much hit the nail on the head there. I think it's also very difficult for us to be analytical and look at some of those players
Yeah.
and say, I think they're the best when we haven't seen them kind of kick a ball in our own lifetime.
Yeah, and I think it's watching like the week in, week out performances as well. Obviously, football has changed massively. I think really, since we started watching football, which is kind of like the age of probably you was probably same as me, like 5, 6 years old, 7 years old, when like really got into football. Maybe
Yeah,
earlier?
probably maybe 10 or so, maybe 10, 11. Because I never sort of really played it as a kid, so it sort of came a bit later for me. But yeah, I'd probably say 10, 11.
Okay.
So
Cool.
international football, I'd probably say, yeah, probably the 2002 World Cup. That's when I really kind of started to take notice of England because that's when, of course, they had that game against Brazil. I don't know about your school, but they kind of
Yeah,
showed it
yeah.
for us
Was that the
before school started.
Ronaldinho? Did he mean it or not?
That's
That
the
was,
one.
that was 2002, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I very vaguely remember some of the Euros, the 2000 Euros. I remember Trezeguet's goal, and that's about it. So the golden goal, which was the last ever golden goal, wasn't it?
I believe so.
Certainly in European, in Europe. But
Scientists have told us that alcohol kills brain cells, so you'll have to forgive
which
me
is
for some of
gonna
this stuff there.
totally bring me on to how I wanted to start this show, and that is I can see already like the viewers have gone up. So I want to say a massive hello to everyone in the chat. Has everyone in the chat? Have you all got your beers ready? I'm totally pushing this. Is like this show is down the local. This is the chat that you kind of have over a pint on a Sunday afternoon while we're watching the Premier League. So is everyone in the chat? Have you got your beers? I got my beers. So the most satisfying sound that you can hear is that one.
What have you got there, Budweiser?
Yeah, premium lager at its finest.
Very nice.
So has everyone got their beers? Is everyone ready for the show ahead in the chat? The chat's dead. No one in the chat.
They're all just waiting for to see what our 11 is,
They're all chugging
our
their
opinions,
pints,
so they
then
can argue with us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely. And they're waiting for that Dutch courage as well of the beer to kick in. I'm sure to pipe up and start making some irrational opinions like Jack Wilshere being the greatest ever England player.
Oh God, don't get me started on Jack Wilshere.
closely followed by Declan Rice and Eric Dyer.
You're a fan of Declan Rice, are you? By that?
No, that's just I like Declan Rice. He's a young player, so you can't really slate him. But I think that I don't know. I don't. I think they've been mooted about. Obviously, he was transferring earlier this season, wasn't they? And some of the figures that were being banded about, I thought was ludicrous. So that's no slate on Declan Rice. I think he can do a job, but
Yeah.
is he ever going to turn out to be one of England's best players? I don't think so. I don't think he'll actually even eclipse Jordan Henderson. Hi, Ollie.
Wow.
Good man. Got his beer poured, ready to go, ready to F and blind at the screen. I'm loving it. So going back to obviously this being kind of predominantly talking about England, I want to bring up a point from the last show before we do go on to the England thing, which I totally overlooked when we talked about the Chelsea winger situation and how I thought that Jadon Sancho would be a fantastic sign of Chelsea and they're the team that should be looking at him.
Yeah.
I totally and we debated who would be a better alternative. Am I right in saying you've already signed a better alternative?
Oh, so we signed Ziyech. Is that the player you're thinking of?
Correct, Amundo.
So Ziyech, as much as I'm kind of aware, he kind of reminds me a little bit of an attacking player who's kind of best from the centre, who can play out wide,
You think?
but who's kind of more dangerous from the centre.
Okay.
I've seen him play in wide positions for Ajax, but yeah, he looks to be most kind of dangerous from the centre. But yeah, I would definitely see him probably deployed out wide at times under Frank Lampard. But he's one of those where you probably look at Mata in the same vein, where he'll kind of play out wide, but we all kind of know that's probably not his strongest position, whereas I suppose someone like Sancho is an out-and-out winger who's going to run at people and take them on.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if Ziyech's that player, but to be fair, I won't pretend I've watched loads of Ajax games and seen him play. I've seen the odd Champions League game where he's played, but yeah, not too sure if he's that sort of player really who'll take on fullbacks.
Yeah, he struck me as kind of being a tricky kind of inside forward. I think he scored one or two absolute worldie goals in the Champions League earlier this season. So I don't know. I think I totally overlooked him in the last show. I think we both did. I think we just totally forgot about him. So I kind of wanted to bring it up. It popped into my head yesterday, and I thought, right, I better mention that. I better try and put that one to bed before, because I think even the people in the chat missed it. So I was like, oh damn. So
that's fair.
sucks. So cool. So anyways, right, St George's Day special. Where do we want to kick this off then? What's the first thing do you want to say? What's the first thing should we debate about England? The current squad situation? How do you feel about it?
Yeah. So in terms of the current squad, I think it's quite important to start off at the Euros in 2016, when we had the kind of. There wasn't much expectation, I don't think, but because it's the Euros, there's less teams in it. There's no Brazils, Argentinas, people like that. So you kind of think, okay, there's a few teams that aren't in there, so maybe England can go a bit further. It's a smaller tournament, so you think maybe we can have a go. And you look at some of the players that were in that team. Yeah. Obviously, it was Rooney's last kind of.
Yeah, because that was post South Africa, wasn't it? Because wasn't it the World Cup in South Africa in 2014 that.
That was 2010, and then the World Cup in 2014 was Brazil.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Sorry. I don't know why South Africa always kind of seems like a massive full stop.
It was 10 years ago, Sean.
Oh, man, what happened? I'll tell you what happened. You know what you said about killing brain cells?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, holy crap, 10 years ago.
But that team, though, in the 2016 World Cup, you had a lot of players kind of coming to the end of their England career.
Yeah.
Roy Hodgson, who... as far as I kind of remember, it came in, at a time when Harry Redknapp was touted to be the England manager in 2012. He came in, and I think, apart from the 2016 tournament, I think he did a serviceable job with a squad that at the time was going through a clear transition. They wanted to kind of phase out the players like your Lampards, Gerrards, Rooneys, a lot of these players who I believe are kind of people who are the guys who are like, give me the ball, I need the ball to be able to do something.
Yeah.
They're always calling for it, always want it, and all the other team players will kind of look up and say, we have to give it to them. They're the only people who can make things happen. And that kind of came to a head in the 2016 tournament against Iceland, I think, where we came up against a team of 11 guys who were just, you could see the way they were playing for a team. They wanted it
Yeah.
a lot more, even with the talent that England had on show. It was potentially the worst game I've ever seen as an England fan. I don't know for a lot of people listening or watching if they agree, but
The Iceland
certainly
game, yeah.
the Iceland game, and I thought it's never going to get worse than this. But obviously it could have. And I just remember I think I went to London and watched that game with my dad and some of his mates. And I think at full time I just walked out of the pub. I didn't say anything to anyone. I just walked straight out of the pub
Seriously?
in London, just went straight home because I was
I think that totally. I mean, I'm sure so many people felt the same. I'm just trying to recollect some of the performances leading up to the Iceland game. I correct me if I'm wrong, but we pretty much stumbled our way into that game, didn't we?
The best moment of that tournament was probably playing Wales and winning it in the last minute. Daniel Sturridge, I think it was,
Sturridge goal. Yeah,
the last minute winner, and that was superb. We were in a pub for that, and tables and chairs went flying and beers, things like that, and that I think sums up. Yeah, that kind of sums up, I think, how kind of underachieved England were in that tournament, because beating Wales, no disrespect to Wales, obviously they did in that tournament was fantastic, but a team with the ability as England should be winning that game. I wouldn't say comfortably, but should be winning it without kind of hailing it. It's like, that kind of reaction that I saw when we won in the last minute. You'd think that should be safe for like a Germany or a Brazil or someone like that. So it kind of speaks to me now. That's where England were at the time. A win against Wales had that kind of reaction.
Yeah, I mean, I go along with that. I think that for me, as I say, like remembering what I can of that tournament and the time, I think England sort of flattered to deceive really the whole time. Going into Iceland game, I personally wasn't confident. I could really see us doing exactly what we done, possibly sort of overlooking it and frankly just not turning up. I mean, that's the only way you can describe that England performance. They just did not turn up. It looked like there was zero cohesion. I don't think a single player walked off the pitch that day with any ounce of credit. Or being able to hold their head high. I mean, there's times when England have looked abysmal, but there's always been a player or two who've been able to walk off that pitch, with their head held high and say, "Do you know what? I gave 100% in this game, and that's it." I don't think a single player just showed up. Not a single player. It was shocking, absolutely shocking.
Yeah, and I mean the results from that particular tournament as well. We only had 4 games that we played in, so we obviously had the group stage 3 games there, and then the round of 16 where we lost. So the first game we played Russia, and it was 1-1. They equalised in the 92nd minute. Obviously, we've mentioned the Wales game, a 2-1 win. Vardy, then it was Bale scored first, Vardy equalised, and then a Sturridge 92nd minute goal.
Wow.
Followed by a 0-0 draw against Slovakia, and then after that, the round of 16, a 2-1 loss against Iceland.
Is that fair to say that's probably England's worst moment in a tournament in our lifetime?
I would say in our lifetime, it's probably the worst England moment ever in our lifetime. I know obviously there are people that might argue otherwise, and maybe there are things that have probably happened maybe in the early 90s that might eclipse that. Yeah. But for me, certainly as an England supporter and watching England, there hasn't been anything lower than that. Yeah. And obviously just to kind of say on the team as well, that we played against Iceland in that game. So we had basically, what I can see here, a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1, however you want to kind of dress it up. So you've got Joe Hart in goal, Danny Rose as a left back, a centre back partnership of Smalling and Cahill, Kyle Walker right back, Eric Dyer, Ali, Rooney in midfield, with Sterling, Kane and Sturridge up front. Wow. So just looking at that team, it feels like that should have been more than enough to win the game. Yeah, definitely. So it's disappointing looking at that, thinking, God, how did this happen?
How do we fall against Iceland? But I mean, the thing is looking back on the Iceland side, and as you say, you reel off all those names from England, and then you look at the Iceland names and the Iceland squad, and all of those players that are in the England squad, yeah, they're class. I mean, we're sitting here just scratching our heads and thinking, how the hell have they not get anything from that? But it maybe just shows it was a group of players and not a team. Unlike the Iceland side, that they operated as a team. There was no marquee player really. I mean, Gylfi Sigurdsson was probably their marquee player at the time, and but he wasn't dragging them through the tournament, like Wayne Rooney done with us in Portugal. For me, they were just a solid team. And and you can look back and you can look at the Leicester side, of the Premier League winning side, and they were just the same. They were just a unit. I felt,
We've also got Morster in the chat who said he won money on the Iceland game, and even with that, he was incredibly depressed. So it's
that's such a British thing as well. I love that.
Yeah, always bet against England. But the point that you're making though about the kind of team cohesion and everything else like that, which is one of the main reasons why we lost, kind of brings us on to, I think, the state that England are in at the moment in terms of I don't know how kind of where we're up to and how much better we are now. I think when you look at the 2018 World Cup. And you kind of look at there was after the Euro 2016 tournament, I think, like we said, England at its lowest, we couldn't really go anywhere further, and I think there was absolutely no optimism or no kind of hope where there's always normally hope for the 2018 World Cup. I remember certainly thinking like, Gareth Southgate, he's for me at the time, a pretty uninspiring choice to be manager. The players that were kind of pulled into the squad at the time, Pickford, Maguire, Henderson, all these guys didn't fill me with confidence at all. And I was thinking, God, this is potentially one of the worst England squads I've seen going into a tournament, given the ones that we've had previously. But I think that the point you made about the team cohesion and everything else like that, what we saw in that World Cup was a team of players basically, all understanding a system and how they fit into it. And there wasn't, obviously, even though we had Harry Kane, who was arguably the star player, even he didn't really kind of act like the star players of the past, like your Lampards, Gerrards, Rooneys, Beckhams, where they're always like, give me the ball, I need the ball. He was very, in my opinion, very selfless in that World Cup. Sacrificing himself, dropping deep to help the team and to take pressure off, to make space for other attackers and things like that. And I don't know. I think now it's difficult with the way because of how well England did in that World Cup. I think it's difficult now to view them in the same way because we got to the semi-final. The problem is there will be some expectation for Euro 2020 as it's going to be known, even though it's in 2021. But I think that now that there's some expectation, we've got players like Hudson-Odoi, Jadon Sancho coming through. Obviously, Marcus Rashford is, in my opinion, twice or three times the player he is now than he was back then. They've got some serious firepower up front, and some great options coming through. There, obviously, Harry Maguire's developed as well. He's not the kind of underdog hero that was there in the 2018 World Cup. He's now an £80 million centre back who's the captain of a massive team. So it's going to be so different to see how the team reacts with that kind of favourites tag. Whereas in this one, it definitely helped being massive underdogs and just kind of thinking, we'll just do what we do. We'll play a style of football that isn't very attractive, but it works. I don't know. So basically, to summarise my long rant, I feel like the fact that England are going to be favourites, I think, might hinder us. But the players, but the players that are coming through will ultimately improve us.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So while we I want to pick up a couple of things, obviously, that come up in the chat, but also want to set a bit of a challenge to the guys that are watching this that are in the chat. England's best front line. I think that's something that can be argued to the toss. that is, as of this moment, saying that every player, English player, is available and fit, who would be England's best front line?
Is this a current squad or is this an all-time thing?
Current. So current players currently playing now, not injured. So I want to kind of throw that into the chat. And we'll pick that back up in sort of 10-15 minutes time when we've just gone over a few things. But I also want to just pick up on a couple of things that are in the chat. Ollie, thanks for the follow. Mortster, thanks for getting involved. Leave the lawn alone, dude. Pull a drink, get involved. And Ringo El Gringo, not even qualifying for the 94 World Cup was just as depressing. What year is it that we had our pants pulled down by Croatia and the Wally and the Brolly incident? Can you remember?
That was 2008.
That was 2008. So, I would say that is there along with the 94 World Cup. And not that I can remember the 94 World Cup because I was 4 years old. So,
no.
Like I say, I can't even remember what day of the week it is thanks to the lockdown. So, let alone what happened in 94. I'd say that along with the Iceland game, not qualifying in 94, and the Wally and the Brolly incident, I'd say they're three of England's lowest moments, certainly in our lifetime. I don't know if you've got any to add to that.
Yeah, I think the Wally and the Brolly moment is certainly up there. That was terrible. That whole kind of campaign.
Yeah.
And I think also it kind of frustrated me. I know, obviously, like I said about Gareth Southgate and the fact that I wasn't particularly happy when he came in, but what he's done since, the way he's kind of rallied the team around so far. I think our biggest problem kind of going into that was, I believe that McLaren was the manager after Sven-Göran Eriksson.
Yeah.
And
because he was his assistant, wasn't he? And then he took on the job, I believe. Am I right?
That's right.
That? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I just don't. No, I think he might have been manager of Middlesbrough, perhaps. Yeah, I think because he got to that, he had that that UEFA Cup run, I think, where they lost to Sevilla in the final. So I think that's probably what maybe got him the job. And the same with Roy Hodgson with Fulham. He kind of had a good spell with them. And I think, though, that my initial point was I've never understood why we have to have an English manager in charge of England.
I don't agree. Yeah, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that.
I understand that obviously it'd be nice to have an English manager in charge, and they'd have some pride and things like that. I think we were pretty badly burned with the whole Fabio Capello situation.
Yeah.
Which is why we kind of didn't go back down that route. But I think all those times when we've had managers like that, they've kind of looked at our players and they've been mismanaged. The managers haven't been up to the standard that England, I think, needed. And I think also the problem is, I guess, with the players that they had at the time, there's probably a big element of players being used to getting what they want at their respective clubs, like Chelsea, Man U, Liverpool. Yeah. There were massive, huge divides in the camps as well. You hear these stories about Chelsea players not talking to Tottenham players and Man U players not talking to Liverpool players and things like that. And now we've got this atmosphere that's really good. Everyone's family and kind of connected to each other in a way that really helps us on the pitch. Yeah. But I think the problem for me over those periods is just the mismanagement of the team. And the problem is, I think we kind of went after McLaren, went, okay, Fabio Capello, let's go with him. Massive pedigree, huge, absolutely one of the biggest managers in the world at that point. And unfortunately,
to pick up on that, at that time when we took on Fabio Capello, I believed he was the best manager in the world at that time, and I said quite openly, if we don't win anything with him, we can't win anything with anyone. Yeah,
and I think I kind of must have felt the same way, or if not very similar. But I think, unfortunately, he kind of felt like he might have just been out for a payday during that time, and with the money he was given and everything else, and the problems he had with the press and the English media. Can you really blame him too much when he kind of probably lost interest? I probably can't. And then obviously he ended up resigning just before Euro 2012 with the whole John Terry scandal when
Yeah.
the FA said, we're going to take the captaincy off him, and he said, look, I'm fine to do that, but let's have a court ruling first,
Yeah.
and then we'll tackle that next time. And they said, no, we're just going to do it, and he just basically said, well, these are footballing matters at the moment with the captaincy. It's been taken out of my hands, so I'm going to leave, basically. And then obviously Roy Hodgson comes in, and we've discussed what's happened there. So I feel like management's been a big issue, but I feel like even though Southgate is limited in terms of what he can do as a tactician, I think his man management and looking at the situation and moving it forward, and the way they've handled PR around that situation as well, has been fantastic. And he's done such a good job of moving, I think, England to the next phase. I don't think he'll be able to win anything with England, unfortunately. But he's done such a terrific job of moving us out of that slump.
Yeah, but I mean, when you look at the how the England side has performed, it's certainly improved in my opinion. I do think that to go back on kind of what you were saying, I think player power and the squad has always been an issue. How the squad integrates, and then coinciding with that, you've always had a massive problem with the English press constantly being on the players' back. I mean, you just have to look at some of Wayne Rooney's outbursts. Obviously, as you say, there was the John Terry situation, I think around about the same sort of time as Rio Ferdinand's drug issue as well. I think that impacted some of his England career. Just all kinds of things, and the English press are the first ones to kind of jump upon it and make a massive thing out of it, which once again kind of turns us as fans against the players. So what you was finding was, I think the media put a lot of pressure on certainly managers and players, and therefore they massively underperformed. I felt as though the last tournament, the World Cup, there was a somewhat of a they sort of stood off the team a little bit. I think they allowed the team to kind of perform at their level, because I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Talking of football in our lifetime, England have never been a top 10 team in our lifetime in the world. Never.
There's a part of me that feels like in the lead up to the 2006 World Cup, in and around that time, I'll probably argue that we had the best first 11 in the world, in my opinion. In terms of if everyone was playing at the kind of the peak of their powers and we had the correct management. I may be a bit blinkered as an England fan saying this, but I don't know if you kind of remember that tournament too much, but it still kind of blows my mind that we couldn't make a team work that had, forgetting about Paul Robinson in goal. Really, he wasn't, I wouldn't say a superstar, but Paul Robinson.
No, he was our best goalkeeper at the time.
Yeah, so you got Paul Robinson in goal, Ashley Cole left back, John Terry, Rio Ferdinand, Gary Neville, David Beckham, Frank Lampard, Steven Gerrard, Joe Cole, Wayne Rooney, Michael Owen. And obviously with hindsight we can see where those players have gone, and obviously looking at people like Michael Owen who had their injury problems and obviously declined pretty rapidly in his career. After having such a strong start. But at that period in time, I thought, no one can beat this team. This is too good.
We did. On paper and individually, we had some of the best players in the world. That back four that you reeled off, at the time, 3 of those could have walked into Europe's best 11. Could have. I'm not going to say they did, but they could have. Cool. Morse just brought up a really cool question in the chat, which I want to address, and then maybe we're just going to throw out a few scenarios and sort of pick what we think could be some of the best teams. What are some of the biggest mistakes England have made? One player that's maybe not performed at English level that should have. But Morse said, do you think we risk going back to that going forward? The players being self-entitled and not engaging with each other. Thinking of Maguire and others in the team now not being the underdogs, Trippier getting the move to Atletico Madrid, etc. I think you could also throw maybe Callum Hudson-Odoi in there, sort of having a bit of a spat. Saying he didn't want to be at Chelsea, wanted to go to Bayern Munich because he wasn't getting game time, and then he appears to change his mind. I think that's the right thing for him, but I could understand his frustrations at the time. So I suppose the question is, can we see them sort of segregating themselves and not necessarily integrating? I don't personally think so. I think that the way these English players have handled themselves, they seem to be cohesing as a unit, and I don't think there is as much segregation now. I think they're acting as professionals. you talked about Harry Kane and his performance in the World Cup. He sacrificed his game for the better of the team. I think that kind of led obviously to a drying up of goals in the later stages, which we could have probably done with. But Sterling didn't have the sort of goal scoring bloom that he's had at Manchester City. He suffered with England in that respect. So I think he had a good tournament. I think what he done for the team was characteristic of what we was trying to achieve in that team. But yeah, I think that these players now, when they go into England, you're playing for England now. I think they're able to be professional enough not to have that separation and those spats like we had in the past. I don't know what you think about that.
So the only point I'd kind of make a counterpoint to that is we've had one very recently with Sterling and Joe Gomez, of course.
Oh, of course.
After the Liverpool Man City game.
Yep.
And because obviously there was such a fierce, I wouldn't say that they're like heated rivals in the same sense that Manchester United and Liverpool are, and Arsenal and Tottenham, but there is, in my opinion, there's basically a rivalry developing, I feel, between the two, and obviously that's spilled over to the England team, which is exactly the kind of thing we were talking about with England teams of the past. So it's put big alarm bells in my head kind of when that happened.
Yeah.
And
the other so quickly though, wasn't it? I mean, there was no. I think that's. I don't know. Maybe I'm being naive, but I think that's dead and buried. I can't see that coming back. I think they both knew it was a bit of a, I don't know. I think that's no different than having an argument with a colleague at work, and just turn around and go, look, sorry, just I was being a douche, and that's it.
Yeah, it was dealt with very quickly. I will concede that, and obviously they got out in front of it as quickly as they could, and they kind of said, "This is what's going to happen. This is what we're going to do, and we're going to forget about it," which is obviously the right thing to do for PR. But I also feel that given the amazing work and PR that they did in 2018 in Russia, and making you look at England like a family of players and going, this is a group now. There's none of that happening. And then even though it happened, and obviously, like you said, sometimes you can't avoid it. Yeah. It really felt to me, even though it's one isolated incident, it felt like a massive step backwards in terms of where the players are and where the players' kind of heads are, and where they're not loyalties. They're kind of the things that they go away for. They're thinking of. If they're still thinking about Liverpool versus Man City when they're going on international duty, then there's something wrong. Obviously, Sterling's held his hands up, and Joe Gomez obviously as well, and they've kind of both kissed and made up, if you want. But I guess the point that Callum Morster's made is is there a risk of that going forward with other players now in kind of bigger positions and who've moved on from that underdog status, and my worry is, I guess my answer is none of us really know because we can't tell the future, but I worry that very much could be the case, and with England now being labelled with favourites with more media scrutiny, I feel like I wouldn't be surprised if we get a story coming out where they basically say the day before the tournament, the Sun leaks a story that's like, Kyle Walker started going out with ex-players, misses behind his back or something. This leaks like it's been held on to, and then the day before the tournament they bring it out, and then we're kind of back to square one. I wouldn't be surprised if we're at that
Kyle
stage.
Walker, dirty dog.
Yeah, I think we know a little bit about what Kyle Walker's been up to during this quarantine period. So
and he is as thick as two short planks, I think. So
yeah.
So that wouldn't surprise me. Right. Okay. So the chat has totally neglected my my challenge of England's top forward line, so they can. They're
still thinking. They're still thinking. Trying to formulate it. Just to remind you, in case anyone.
That's what it is.
In case anyone's joined again, basically.
Pour those beers, dude. Get involved. Make some calls. Throw some curveballs out there. Todd Cantwell. Why not?
Todd Cantwell.
Don't laugh.
He's a decent player. I don't know why it just made me laugh. I just out of all the players you could have picked.
Okay, forward line. So I'm thinking it depends on formation. So if you was going to go with a 4-3-3, your front three. If you was going to play a 4-2-3-1, your front four. 4-4-2, your front two. So, I think it's hard to call who's England's best striker at the minute. I think Harry Kane's arguably England's best striker. You guys debate that. Yeah, England's best front line. I hope that makes sense. The formation thing. It depends on your formation. Tammy Abraham.
Sorry, you're going to get a lot of Chelsea bias on this.
Dude, do you know what? I can't really see an argument against it. So, anyways, right. So that's for the chat, and we'll pick that back up in a few minutes once some people have thrown some suggestions out there, and we can critique them a little bit. But going back onto your last point, and talking about the segregation in the side, this is a point I wanted to bring up, and that is that in our lifetime, talking about all these England squads, these England teams, if there was one player that we could bring into those squads or into those teams, and they could be any nationality, who would improve England?
So a current player from any nationality?
Not current. So over the last, as I say, in the England teams that we have known since we've been watching football, what's the one player you think could have had enough of an impact on the squad to make them perform at a better level, to maybe push them to that next level to win tournaments? Who do you think? Say one player that we've missed over that time, in your opinion?
I think we've really missed a player. Like, I look at the Spain team that won the 2010 World Cup and the 2008 and 2012 Euros, and the midfield they had with Xavi, Iniesta, and Sergio Busquets.
Yeah,
which is also the Barcelona midfield as well. That's won so much over the years.
Yeah,
and I've really felt like we've been crying out for a player like that for so long that can dictate games, and kind of win those important games. That we're going back to the 2018 World Cup very quickly, the Croatia game. Yeah. The whole reason, in my opinion, why we lost that is because we were just overrunning the midfield and we couldn't get a foothold on it. We couldn't control it. And then as soon as Sterling was taken off, our kind of out was gone. Yeah. So we were kind of penned in. Then there was no one who was giving them anything to think about. And when you have players like Rakitic and Modric who were just passing fun, Kovacic as well, it's game over. And as soon as they started controlling that midfield, even though we were still 1-0 up, you kind of knew what was coming a mile off. Yeah. So I feel like we've always cried out for a player like Xavi, Iniesta, Busquets. I guess pick any one of those three.
Okay.
And for me, those one of those players within our midfield, controlling the game, slowing it down, being a leader on the pitch, controlling the tempo, I think that would have made a real difference to the way we play and potentially won games.
Yeah, okay. So this crossed my mind, and I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this because I've got a bit of a bizarre choice for this one. And if I was to pick a player, it'd be Roy Keane. Exactly for the reasons that you mentioned before with... In the dressing room, I think he would have got the best out of those players at that time. I think he wouldn't have accepted anything less than the best out of those players at that time while they were with England. He done it in Manchester United. I think it was hugely overlooked what an impact he had on that Manchester United side, obviously during their success. Later on, it was kind of seen, that Roy Keane's kind of attitude got a bit out of hand. But at that time, when Manchester United were winning everything and at times they looked unbeatable, it was Roy Keane's influence behind the scenes, I feel, that was having that huge impact and was pushing those players. It got the best out of Ryan Giggs, it got the best out of David Beckham. His job allowed Paul Scholes to get the best out of him. He recently spoke about his time at Manchester United. He said, Roy, why didn't you score enough goals? He goes, it wasn't my job to score goals. My job was to win that midfield and to push the players on to get the best out of them. And I think that's what England that's what they've needed. I think Rooney tried to do it, and he just didn't. It just didn't suit him. But I think that is what England have needed. They've needed someone who is that absolute driving force that expects 100% from those players. Because I think a lot of them, if you were to sit down and ask them now, over a few pints like we're doing on this, they would tell you when I went and played for England, it was a holiday. I don't reckon half of those players took it seriously whatsoever. They don't get paid to play for England, so why they don't give a hoot. They go away and they get to go all across Europe and they get to go to these tournaments. They get to go to these countries and supplement these things, and to them it's just a bit of fun, whereas in your club side is your job, and it's what you put your heart and soul into.
And I think as well, when you look at other nations as well, and you see how passionate their players are for playing for their team, I think it's always, normally, most years, left a really bitter taste in my mouth after the inevitable, being dumped out of a tournament.
Yeah.
And the kind of way, I think the reaction of the way that no one really kind of feels like they care about it.
Yeah.
And that kind of hurts. Well, I suppose it used to hurt more than it does now. But it used to hurt so much, sort of putting so much emotional investment into that as a football fan. And for those weeks, you were so much invested in that. That's almost your life. You're literally like, what would this mean for me, my friends, my family, the whole country? If I'd be so proud, and it would change my whole life. It's crazy when you think about it that way. But I remember thinking about the 2018 World Cup. We're in the semi-final, just sometimes staying up at night thinking like, oh my God, what the hell happens if we win it? People are going to be out on the streets all weekend. Things are going to just stop like they have now, basically.
England, we could have got this coronavirus thing done and out the way by now. Jesus. But what if? What if? I mean, can you imagine? We've been able to turn around to our kids or or grandkids and say, I was able to watch England win a World Cup. It's something that no one in our lifetime now really can talk about it. So it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad that England's become this team that they're the Kinder Surprise of Europe. They've got all this expectation, but they're just full of crap, quite frankly. So
it's sort of like a tragedy, basically, in my opinion, sort of supporting them. Because I think with another team, you would kind of think it's happy to be there. We know we're going to get knocked out at some point, but because of the players that England have, the pedigree of the league, everything else, there's always this kind of hope to think, maybe it's kind of thinking, oh, it's a bit kind of big-headed of English to do that. Maybe it is, but you always think because of where the English kind of are with football and things like that, it's always just in the back of your head, like there's a chance here, like England can do it. You think about all the songs, all the free lines and stuff like that, thinking, they kind of rouse you up for thinking like, oh God, I think we can really kind of do this, and it just never happens. And I feel like that's going to be it for the whole of our life. Basically, we're going to get really close one year.
I hope not. I mean, when we talk about the youngsters for England, and I hope it's not media hype, but I mean, there are some players that are coming through that they could potentially go on to be some of the best players in Europe. So I sincerely hope that is something that can that can come to fruition, and we can see England win something, even if it's the Nations League or whatever it is, which we come close to winning.
More heartbreak.
Anything. Yeah, I know, more heartbreak. God damn you. God damn you, England. You're like our 16-year-old crush. You git. Always give us heartbreak. So to throw some things out there, I think what we should probably do is maybe look back and try and pick what we think is England's best side. Say once again, since we've been watching England, so that's from the ages of like 10 and upwards, 8 and upwards, for me, because I'm slightly older than you bastard. So are we going to agree on a formation? Is there a formation that you think would best suit the players that we want to pick? This is a collective, by the way. I am saying we. This is not going to be a Jamie Carragher, Roy Keane argument of me going, seriously?
Well,
seriously?
we hope so. Until you pick Todd Cantwell. I think
outrage already.
I think it would be nice to have a sort of classic 4-4-2.
Yeah, we're going to go 4-4-2.
When we started both kind of following England, that was the formation. That was the kind of
okay.
I'd go with that.
I'm going with that. I'm going with 4-4-2. I'm happy with that. So goalkeeper, what do you reckon?
So are we going from our generation basically, so we can pick?
Yeah, so players that we would pick. Obviously that have got England caps. I can't think of anyone that hasn't been capped for England that I'd pick. So.
Oh my God, goalkeeper is such a tough one.
Really? Dude, I thought about this when I was in the bath earlier, and I thought it was quite an easy one.
I mean, my thing is, even though he's made so many mistakes recently, I love Jordan Pickford. He was my favourite player in that 2018 World Cup tournament, and he, the saves he made, the way he commanded his box, just screaming at any opposition player who dared get anywhere near him. I absolutely loved him, and even though ability-wise he wasn't the best out of all the players we can pick from, he just had so much character, and obviously the heroics and in the penalty shootout as well. I just absolutely loved him. I really did, and he was my favourite player in that tournament. I know, obviously now, I actually probably wouldn't pick him for the upcoming tournament.
You just picked him up, but you wouldn't pick him. I'm
picking him based on nostalgia and hazy drunken memories. But I would, if I was going to go for the next tournament, I'd go Dean Henderson probably, who's at Sheffield United at the moment. Obviously, Man United player, but going back to R11. Sorry to ramble on. I think I would go for Pickford just for the memories. But if you're picking it ability wise, you've probably got to go David Seaman, right?
I was going to say Seaman. Yeah, I can't think of anyone that's performed better consistently in goal, not just for England, but also at club level as well. I mean, at one time he was arguably the best goalkeeper in our league. So I'd personally go with Seaman. I mean, is there anything to be said for David James? No, that's the answer to that
James.
one.
He's. I think he's a very decent keeper, David James. But
really,
like I said, decent.
Come on, be honest. You are drunk. Fine. If you're picking Pickford and David James as your goalkeepers, you are steaming.
I think decent's fine, but obviously he's not in the same bracket as Seaman. Not anywhere close, but. Yeah, we've had a lot of those keepers over the years. They're kind of in that bracket of they're okay. They're not horrendous, but they're serviceable, I suppose. And that's I'd kind of put David James in that boat.
Yeah, serviceable. Yeah, I think you're always going to get a fairly steady 7 or 8 out of 10 out of him. So I'd personally So let's say Seaman. I think we can agree on that.
Sure.
Right. So we can start right to left or left to right. I'll let you choose.
Let's go left to right.
Because left's an easy one, so let's get that one out of the way. It's Ashley Cole all day long.
I was about to say Danny Rose. No, I wasn't going to say Danny Rose. I'm just joking.
Put that beer down, Matt. You've had one.
Yeah, I know. I think there's something in it, to be fair.
What's Sasha been doing to you?
Oh, God knows. But yeah, you think...
Sorry, Sasha.
There's no... Yeah, I don't really think there's any really alternative to Ashley Cole.
No, in terms of Luke Shaw maybe showed some glimpses of form. Ben Chilwell showed some glimpses of form. Wayne Bridges showed glimpses of form, but
There's a shout for Stuart Pearce.
Yeah, shout for Stuart Pearce. But Stuart Pearce was never at any point, close to being in the world or Europe's best 11. Whereas I think for a while Ashley Cole was there. His sort of early Chelsea career, sort of late Arsenal career, I think he was probably the best left back in Europe. So I think that's a pretty easy one to go with. So moving to centre backs, I'm going to obviously pick a Chelsea legend that is John Terry. Is there any disagreements with having John Terry at centre back?
Obviously, I love him for what he's done for Chelsea and. Yep. When he's played for England, he's given 100%.
Yeah.
My only, I guess, if I'm putting myself out of my Chelsea shoes and kind of looking at it from the outside in, is that his time as England captain was marred with so much controversy and ended so abruptly with what happened.
Yeah.
That could blight it, and his England legacy. I think he'll always go down as one of, if not the most hated England player of all time. Despite, I think, the fact that when he did play, he loved playing for England. He wanted to play for his country, I think, a lot longer than he was allowed to. But I'd say maybe there's an argument for not giving him the spot for those reasons, because of the controversy and also the kind of misjudged 2010 effort to try and kind of what's the word? Not out Fabio Capello, but try and try and push some player power on him a bit, which I thought wasn't in great taste at the time, and I still think it was a little bit misjudged.
I mean, for me, you always have to pick a player on his form and his ability. I think it's dreadful, kind of what happened with John Terry and off the pitch and the kind of witch hunt that was kind of put around him. Yeah, I mean, there was it was stupidity, but I want to kind of do this based upon, like you say, you're not bringing in your personal life, I suppose. So, and I felt like that was a personal matter, and it shouldn't have affected his football the way it did. Once again, that's the media jumping on things, and But then I suppose on the other side of the coin, he's get paid an exorbitant amount of money every week, and and that sort of thing is just not acceptable in any part of society. So, so I look at it both ways. But I mean, for me personally, I'd pick him for his footballing ability and also his leadership, which he showed at Chelsea, on and off the pitch. So,
okay.
If you've got any objections,
I think I know who we're both probably going to say next, but I think also another player who could kind of creep into that for me is Sol Campbell. Another one that we kind of forget how good he was and how excellent he was for England. Tony Adams, another Arsenal defender as well. Absolute quality, basically. I think another one that probably wouldn't get in the all-time 11 because, again, time cut short for England due to probably Terry and the other player we're going to talk about. But Jamie Carragher, again, is another one that I would look at. Ledley King, I mean,
there's been some great centre backs. I mean, Jamie Carragher's a great shout, because he very much lived in the shadow of John Terry at times, I felt, and he got left out of the side because of him. Don't get me wrong, I don't think Jamie Carragher was ever, I don't know, once again, one of the best centre backs in Europe, but he played with his heart on his sleeve a lot. He led by example. He was one of those players. He was an English player. You know what I mean? These are the type of players we looked at, and that's how I felt about John Terry. I felt he was an English player. In that respect, he played the English way. So, I mean, are we saying there's a bit of a toss-up between those two? Because, I mean, who's you going to say alongside those? Either any of those? I mean, is Rio Ferdinand nailed on in your books?
In my opinion, I would probably put Rio Ferdinand in there. I mean, another player that I would, for his kind of the way he was in the 2018 World Cup, is a real outsider, is Maguire. But obviously, I don't think he's played for long enough. But I think the way he kind of controlled that back line, it's probably the most assured defensive performance I've seen for England in a tournament. All these players that we've mentioned, I've never really kind of seen them fully look at their peak at a tournament. Whereas, Maguire, I thought he pushed himself over and above at the time what he was capable of at Leicester. And obviously the reason why he was, Man U were happy to spend £80 million on him. So that's another player that I might consider going in there, but probably I would say, Ferdinand probably for me in terms of ability, and if we're looking at a team to go out on paper and to beat another team, I'd probably say Ferdinand in there.
Ferdinand. Okay, so we're definitely going to have Rio Ferdinand as one of the centre-backs, and then it's a toss of a coin really between Carragher, Terry, Maguire,
Campbell. That's
Campbell.
Quite a few we've got.
Jesus Christ, there is a lot. I mean, I think it's hard to look past Terry in that respect. For me, it's Carragher or Terry. I'll let you choose. Carragher or Terry.
We'll go John Terry. Just if not for anything else, for the salmon dive where he put his face, put his face on the line for England. Yeah,
that was awesome. That was like something out of what's that? The Total Wipeout or something. That's awesome. Right back.
Gary Neville, I think, is the
Neville.
The kind of standout for me. I can't really think of many other right backs for England.
For Kieran Trippier.
Obviously, I loved the free kick moment. Yeah. That's fantastic. I think playing as right wing back in the 2018 tournament was he did well there. I think it was a kind of stroke of genius playing Kyle Walker as the right centre back as well, who could cover Trippier when he kind of went flying. But I think that in terms of performances and what we've seen, I think it'd be very hard to look past Gary Neville in terms of how good he is. But I do think, however, that you'll probably get any one of the three of Wan-Bissaka, Trent Alexander-Arnold, or Reece James, eclipsing that position. I think it'll probably be Trent Alexander-Arnold unless he moves into midfield, which I think he has the ability to in the future. But any one of those three, I think, will be remembered as being one of the best right backs in English history.
Is there an argument to say that Trent Alexander-Arnold could kind of do the Gareth Bale kind of thing of moving from a left back and moving on to being sort of like a right winger, right midfielder? Do you think?
Absolutely. I think that Trent Alexander-Arnold is a fantastic player. I think if anything, he'll move into central midfield as a kind of deeper line kind of playmaker, I suppose. I think his ability is amazing, and I think he'll get to a point where you look at a player like Steven Gerrard as well. Don't forget he started at right back really for Liverpool, and he ended up playing where he played and did such an incredible job. But I think Alexander-Arnold maybe moved into midfield at some point in his career. I don't know if everyone in the chat might agree, but I think he certainly will. But for now, for our team, I'd say probably Gary Neville.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, based on his consistency as well. I think consistency is something that needs to be kind of brought up. Because we've got to try and look at the kind of longevity of it. And I think that Gary Neville, he held down that right back position, for a long time, not because of outstanding performances, but because of his consistency. You always kind of got a 7 or an 8 out of 10 out of Gary Neville. You very rarely got anything less. So that completes our back line. So we've got David Seaman in goal, Gary Neville at right back, Rio Ferdinand, John Terry at centre back, and Ashley Cole at left back. So moving on to midfield, I think we'll work back to front, right midfield. I think everyone in the chat that's joined in has named who we'd probably pick.
It's David Beckham, isn't it? So it has to be.
It's got to be David Beckham, the poster boy of England, really, in our lifetime. Do you think that David Beckham's style of play and his ability now would hold up in the Premier League?
Yeah, I do. I think, though, he would potentially be moved into a kind of more central role. Okay. Given what wider players are expected to do these days and the kind of work rate and everything else, and be a bit more defensively minded, I feel that he might be utilised as more of an attacking midfield kind of position. We saw towards the end of his career when he was deployed in a central midfield position what he can do.
Do you think that there's an argument to say that nowadays he would, when he very first started, he would have more than likely played as a wide left player?
Quite possibly.
Do you think that, like with the current trend of right-sided players cutting in from the left-hand side, that David Beckham, if he was to come through a youth academy now, he'd more than likely be groomed into that position?
I mean, I suppose the counter argument to it is the strength of his deliveries on his right foot is really what made him as a player and what made him dangerous. And I suppose if you put him out onto the left, if you've got good fullbacks and good midfielders tracking him and kind of keep it on his left foot, that would hamper that. And obviously, like you said, he can cut back and he can cut in, but I think those outswinging balls that he kind of puts in from the right hand side were second to none. And I still, to this day, don't really. I mean, maybe the game's changed slightly, so we don't see him as much. But seeing a player who can put them in, maybe there's an argument for saying, Robertson and Alexander-Arnold are kind of bringing that back a little bit in the way they play for Liverpool and those deliveries. But I think he would thrive certainly. With doing that in this day and age. Yeah,
cool. Right, so I mean, the centre midfielders could be something that I think we could talk about for the next hour. So I want to skip that and move to left midfield quickly and get that out of the way.
A very difficult one.
Another very difficult one. That's a tough one. I can see that someone in the chat has picked an absolute doozy of John Barnes. But if I'm honest, I haven't really watched John Barnes play personally, so I don't want to comment on a player that I can't necessarily pick. I can only pick what I've seen in my lifetime, which is a difficult one because, as you say, England haven't been blessed with left midfielders really. So Yeah. Any suggestions? The only player I can really think of that's played in that position and played well was Joe Cole.
I think there's an argument for Joe Cole with obviously the goal he scored against Sweden. It was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he, like many other players, played to the best of his ability in an England shirt.
No.
I would probably say, even though he's not really like a proper left midfielder for a 4-4-2, as a wide player, I would probably put everything into Raheem Sterling.
Okay.
I think he's England's best player. I think he was one of England's best players at the 2018 tournament, despite not scoring. He did a lot of damage with bringing defenders away, threatening. I think the moment he came off against Croatia, we lost the game,
big time,
basically. So I think what he's done since then, and what he's going to continue to do, for me, it's probably going to be him. I think that because it's such a weird position, because like you said, when we've watched England play, there hasn't really been many of those players. So I'd probably say Sterling, but I'm happy to hear some counterpoints.
So not Stuart Downing?
God, no, absolutely not.
Any other, like,
I mean, he was decent. Again, he was serviceable, and he did well for England. He did okay. He did his best, but
yeah, I'm sure he did.
He's just not in that
he
bracket.
He was a demon on WhatsApp, I've heard.
That was Adam Johnson, wasn't it?
Was it Adam Johnson?
I think they're the same thing.
Johnson shit, yeah.
Unless you've got some information about Stuart Downing that you want to tell us.
I totally got mixed up with Adam Johnson. Crap. Stuart Downing, yeah. Stuart Downing had like 1 or 2 good seasons for Middlesbrough, and that was it. Yeah, I got totally mixed up there. Shit. How embarrassing.
So thank God. That was a bit libelous almost.
So I mean, I'd go with Sterling. I personally, I don't know. I think Sterling had a great last tournament. I would go as far as to say we've obviously not seen the best of him yet.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's still got a lot to improve on in his game. But he's still, 25, 26?
Very young, yeah. He's still...
Relatively. So, he's going to peak in sort of 2 or 3 years' time, and I hope he's able to do that with England. I also like what he does off the pitch and his general demeanour. I think he's taken a lot of crap, especially when he went to Man City from Liverpool. He got a real roasting. So, sorry, did you say 20?
He is 25, yeah.
He is 25. He got an absolute roasting. I think he dealt with it extremely well. All of the racism stuff, he's been an absolute champion for, in my opinion. So I think, once again, we're going to go back to that argument of having leaders in the dressing room, players that embody the spirit of England. Then I'd certainly have to go with Raheem Sterling in that respect. So do we want to start talking about forward line, or do we want to hit this sticky debate of the centre midfield?
I'm happy to go with whatever you think.
I get to pick the team. Oh, thank you.
Go for it. Where would you like to go? Midfield or attack?
Let's talk midfield. Let's get it out of here. So
okay.
I think the first 2 names that we're going to talk about are Gerrard and Lampard.
Mm-hmm.
Would you accommodate them in your team, or do you see it as though it kind of? I think that time with England, it didn't really work. I can't quite get my head around why it didn't work. Do you think it was something to do with them being quite similar in the fact that they were necessarily not looking behind them all the time? They were more looking to create play?
Yeah, I think because it's been such a long debate about which player was better. I think a lot of people forget that Steven Gerrard and Frank Lampard were very different in the way they played football and the way they ran midfields.
Yeah.
As an example, having watched Frank Lampard a lot over my life as a player, I think he couldn't tackle. His off-the-ball work was basically non-existent. Not to criticise because that wasn't, like you said about Roy Keane earlier, not his job. But the problem is when you're playing in a 4-4-2, you need someone who I think will be able to do that as well as the other things. So I think what you really needed was someone who could complement one of them.
Yeah.
Or even, I guess move ahead of the curve at the time and play someone like Michael Carrick behind both of them. so they can kind of both move forward a little bit, do a few more things going forward, and not have to worry about that. But obviously,
do you say that that's the reason why Owen Hargreaves had such a say in that England side back in the the sort of middle 2000s? Was it sort of middle to late 2000s? He was in the side and he had an absolutely stonking tournament.
Yeah, I'd probably say so. I think we needed a player like him, really. And I don't think Lampard could offer that. Gerrard, even though he has more of a defensive side to his game, he's able to do those things a little bit better. They're just not those players.
Okay, so are we sort of coming to the agreement that we're going to pick either Lampard or Gerrard?
Yeah, and I would definitely pick Steven Gerrard over Frank Lampard. Absolutely. Okay. I love Frank Lampard, don't get me wrong, and everyone who's watching who knows me knows that I'll probably jump in front of a train for that man. But in terms of what he's done for England...
It'll be a much more boring show.
What he's done for England, well, unless you're a train watcher, in that case you might be like, oh, that's that train coming through. No, but no, I think...
Throw the brakes on quick.
I think that Frank Lampard hasn't done as much for England as Steven Gerrard has. Steven Gerrard has also been the captain of England during a very turbulent period of the England team. I think he did a good job of captaining the side, and he did kind of prop up when needed a little bit more than Frank Lampard. I think obviously Frank Lampard scored some great goals for England. He loved playing for them, and he played whenever, but he just didn't reach the heights that he did for Chelsea. That being said, I don't think Steven Gerrard did either. I think Gerrard, played much better for Liverpool than he did for England. Again, we can pick out thousands, hundreds of players probably who've done the same thing.
Yeah, Christ almighty, we can just centre midfielders. Yeah,
but I'd probably put Gerrard above Lampard in the team just for that reason, the fact that he was the captain, and he's probably had more influential moments on the team.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, no, I would agree with that. For me, if we was to talk about who's one of the best goal scorers, you could take that both ways. Who scores the best goals? Who scored the most goals? In the Premier League era, I think Frank Lampard's always got to become in as part of that discussion. If we're going to pick a team, though, I don't necessarily see how you can have a player like that in your team unless you've got another player alongside him that can really complement that, which he had at Chelsea. But we weren't blessed with that in England. As you say, the closest thing we had was someone like Owen Hargreaves, and maybe talking nowadays, someone like Declan Rice, or possibly even Jordan Henderson. But I don't think any of those guys would do the job that's needed well enough to allow Frank Lampard to perform at his absolute 100% best. So for that reason, I'd agree, and I think that Steven Gerrard can eclipse what Frank Lampard had done if he was playing alongside a player like that. So we'd go with Gerrard in our centre midfield alongside a player unknown. Just nodding a hat to the chat who Mortster's mentioned Henderson, and Ringo El Gringo is picking who's that? Paul Scholes alongside Gerrard. So everyone, it's a unanimous agreement that we're going to have Steven Gerrard in there. No Todd Cantwell in centre midfield. Stop laughing, Matt. So who would we pick to partner Steven Gerrard? Because I think Gerrard is one of those box-to-box players. I think he maybe does the dog work as well as pushing on forward and arriving on the edge of the area there to get the goals. But he's not he's not a defensive-minded player. So do we need someone that's of a similar ilk as Steven Gerrard alongside him, or do we need a more defensive-sided player?
See, there's one part of me that is thinking of two Pauls here.
Okay.
One of them is Paul Scholes, as has been mentioned in the chat already.
Ollie's just mentioned him with his vision. So
his vision. I think the fact that he could kind of get stuck in as well when needed. Obviously, his tackling wasn't the best, but
his tackling was massively blown out of proportion. I know he made some shocking tackles, but do you know what? I think Scholes made some good tackles as well that were overlooked. I'm a huge advocate for that man.
And it was really kind of a shame for him, the fact that this kind of happened for him for England, because he was such a good player, and he kind of shafted out of position a little bit from where he was best. And where he could do a lot of damage.
Is there an argument to be said that was maybe down to an ego thing?
Possibly.
Going back to a personal level, Paul Scholes always strikes me, and certainly watching the Class of '92 DVD and stuff, he seems quite a shy, timid guy who, he's the sort of bloke, if you said to him, Paul, I want you to play centre-back today, he'd probably go, all right then. Whereas I just don't think you'd get that from Lampard or Gerrard. I think that they're a bit more authoritative. So, is there an argument to say that could have curtailed his England career to some extent or not? I don't know.
Yeah, it might have possibly done.
Maybe. I don't know the guy, so I'm just.
I don't want to. I've seen him a few times on TV, and he's a bit
harsh. He's no Robbie Savage, son.
I feel like Robbie Savage would be a little bit more of a laugh, even though.
What, a night out?
Yeah, well, probably. Maybe not much.
That.
You'd probably have you'd get him a WKD probably, but then.
3 or 4 of them, and he'd be steaming.
He would definitely be a blue WKD man, wouldn't he?
Oh, he is, yeah. You look at Robbie Savage and you say blue WKD all day long.
Yeah.
Maybe a Bacardi Breezer at the weekends.
But I actually think another player that I would probably put in there is Paul Gascoigne. For England, I think, very, very, very sad. Obviously, what's kind of happened to him now and where he is.
Yeah.
And obviously needs a lot of help. And sadly, it's not kind of forthcoming. And I hope kind of during this time, especially, he has people around him that can kind of help and things like that. But in terms of the player he was, and especially going with the Euro '96 tournament, just an absolutely magical player who could just
incredible
control the midfield and orchestrate attacks from the centre of midfield. And I think for me, he'd personally get my vote in. I know we talked about players complementing other players, and I think the fact that Steven Gerrard can kind of do that kind of, not necessarily dirty work, but he can tackle, and he does have some ability off the ball. It would be a bit of a lacking team, but that's why we've got the back five that we have, because if it goes through, we've got a pretty good damn back five there. But I'd probably go with Paul Gascoigne just because of what a hell of a player he was, and it was kind of just within the time where we obviously didn't see him that much as a player, given our ages, but
we've seen enough.
Having known so much about him and the impacts he's had on not just the clubs he's played for, but football as a whole and the Premier League, I think it would be a miss not to have him in there.
Man, I'd love to do in a future show talk about some of the stories that excuse me, the kind of old tales of what Gazza got up to, and so I think of so many players, because he's one of those that as soon as you hear the name, your eyes light up and you just regale all these goals and these moments and these times of them playing, and like I say, and he was one of those that off the pitch he was just a fascinating man. I mean, unfortunately, as you say, it spilled into his personal life to an extent that now he's a raging alcoholic, and I sincerely hope that he can get the help that he needs. And as you say, we don't want to see someone fade away to that sort of thing in the same way that happened with George Best, because it's just tragic. But for me, once again, if you're going to talk about Paul Gascoigne as well, you kind of got to look at the human side a little bit as well, and say that you just hear nothing but just some of the funniest stories of the things he got up to. About, I think when he was at Napoli, he hid a snake in someone's kit bag or something, he found apparently there was a snake broke into his house and he killed it, and then he hid it in another player's kit bag. So all these funny little stories, and you kind of want a class clown in your team just to unite you all, so like he done at the Euros in Italy. So cool. So we've got a pretty varied midfield going on, with David Beckham on the right, flanked on the other side by Raheem Sterling and Steven Gerrard and Paul Gascoigne in the centre midfield.
So you got a few people on chat as well. You've got Ollie, and I think it was Morster as well, who both had shouts for Jordan Henderson in midfield. What would you think to that?
Jordan Henderson, it's a tough one. I think that Jordan Henderson, I think, is, you could arguably say he's one of England's most underrated players, along with Michael Carrick, in the last, say, in our lifetime. I don't think what Jordan Henderson does is pretty. I don't think what he does is outstanding. I don't think we don't look at him in the same way we look at Paul Scholes and go, what vision, what amazing passing. We don't look at Jordan Henderson and say, what incredible goal scoring he's got. He scored some incredible goals. Let's not forget that. I think there was one against, was it Man City, where he just curled it straight in the top bins from all the 25 yards.
Mm.
He is kind of the modern day footballer in the most positive sense, in that he's so well rounded. He can pick a pass, he can get forward, he can get back, he covers side to side, he puts a tackle in, he does a bit of everything. I really rate the lad, and I think this season, he's been incredible. He's been incredible. He's embodied everything about Liverpool this season, and it's a reason why they've been, right up there and deserved league winners.
I think if the season goes ahead, if it kind of went ahead as normal,
yeah,
he was fully expected to be named as player of the Premier League, basically, as well, player of the year.
I wouldn't say fully expected.
Really, I saw he was a big favourite on a lot of kind of, forums and things like that.
Yeah, I think for maybe Liverpool's achievements, but I mean, for me, I think I spoke about it on Monday, and I said I can't see anyone past Kevin De Bruyne. That man's on another level. So, but he's not English, so we're not going to talk about him. He can't get into
our team.
So, yeah,
he had his chance.
Try. He's got an English name, Kevin.
His parents could have given birth to him in England, and
I was going to say, because wasn't there at one point...
selfish fuckers. So here we are.
And to be fair, when Andy Murray wins Wimbledon, he's British.
He's British, not Scottish.
So, yeah, exactly. Yeah, but when he loses at Queen's, all of a sudden he's Scottish.
Mm.
So I also heard talking about tennis that Roger Federer had a long lost British cousin or something. So at one point when he won Wimbledon, they were saying, well, you've got to support the nearly British guy. Anyways, I'll talk about another sport that's
on that, you've just reminded me of that. There is a who was it? There was an Italian.
The cricket side.
No, it's the 2006 World Cup.
Yep.
Final. So that game was against that was Italy versus France. The famous Zidane headbutt game.
Oh yeah, Marco Materazzi. Yeah.
And there was a player. Who was it? There was a player who played for Italy, who was born in England, I think, or Gino
Gattuso. Gotta be, surely. He looks like an Englishman.
I can't remember, but there was this massive thing in the papers. It was like,
pints and have a fight.
We've got an Englishman in the Perotta, Camoranesi, Materazzi. I don't think it was Materazzi. Was it?
What a team!
He might have been Materazzi.
No.
Where was he born?
Marco Materazzi.
No, he was born in Leeds. Sorry, I'm going to go through this now.
He's born in Leeds? Yeah, we'll count him in.
He's in Leeds. Was it Camoranesi?
No, it can't be. Not Mauro Camoranesi. No way.
No, he is. This is going to annoy me now.
There's no way, really. We were trying to claim an Italian and high tie in the what?
Italian World Cup winner, English
Italian World Cup winner.
There is one.
Gino De Campo.
Perotta.
Really?
I think it was Perotta. Simeone Perotta.
Did he play at uni?
Yeah, place of birth, Ashton-under-Lyne, England.
No.
Yeah, Perotta.
Wow, we have an English World Cup winner.
Yeah,
this is the best thing. Quick, call the Sun. They need to fill their pages.
I think they probably covered it to death after the final.
I'm pretty sure they're the ones that tried to claim that Roger Federer had a auntie or uncle buried, dunno, in a cave in Chile somewhere that was English. So, yeah, that's the Sun for you. Great British journalism at its finest, with tits on page 3. So, anyways, before I go grab my copy of the Sun, who would we pick as our front line? And I'm ready to throw a massive curveball in here, but I'm going to let you pick the other one first.
So I think one of them, I think the obvious one will be Wayne Rooney. He's the top English goal. He scored the most goals for Wayne Rooney. The most English. He scored the most English goals for Wayne Rooney. He scored the most England goals.
He scored the most Rooneys for Wayne.
Exactly. But he scored the most goals for England. He's the top goal scorer. It's happened in our lifetime.
Yep.
It's an amazing achievement.
With
Wayne Rooney, it's a bit of a shame that in the last kind of years of his career, he kind of turned into the butt of the joke. He's kind of slow. He's this. He's that. He's in central midfield now. Some Man U managers are coming in. He's been played slightly deeper. I think what a lot of people forget is the younger you start playing football, the quicker you're going to burn out. So obviously playing by the age of 16, when he was 26, he was basically coming to the end of what his body could kind of handle. And the same thing happened to players like Fernando Torres, Andrei Shevchenko, all these fantastic strikers that started when they're young and expected. Michael Owen as well, who's mentioned in Ringo Gringo's team. All these players that start so young and they're expected to just carry on, but their bodies just can't do that. And obviously Wayne Rooney develops. He played in a deeper role in midfield towards the end of his career, and he obviously wasn't as good as he was when he started. But for what he did, and just the goals he scored for England, I think it would be almost impossible. Out of every single position on the pitch we have, it would be impossible not to have him in there, just because in our lifetime he became the highest England goal scorer.
I think it's very hard to look past Wayne Rooney, and I totally agree. I think his time at England and Manchester United, you really saw the ups and downs of the modern day footballer. I think it was atrocious the way he was treated by the media, especially early on in his career when he had that issue of him sleeping with an elderly woman or something like that. It just, for me, he was always, the media's punch bag. He was always, if England had a bad game, it was all Wayne Rooney's fault. Wayne Rooney didn't score enough goals. Wayne Rooney didn't do this. Wayne Rooney didn't do that. Wayne Rooney's not cutting it at Manchester United. He's only scored 15 goals this season. It's just, there was just one thing after another on that man's shoulders. And he's got a family, he's got a wife, and he was constantly being berated and being badgered. And then there was that one point where he turned around to a camera, didn't he, after a game out in, I don't know, it was like San Marino or somewhere, and he turned around and said, "Isn't it nice when your own fans are booing you?"
So that was South Africa.
I think we scabbed like a 1-0 win or a 2-1 win or something, didn't we? I can't remember what team we was playing against.
I had this lined up. It was 0-0 against Algeria. It was an awful performance.
It was an awful
and obviously
in an awful game.
The fans booed him, but not booed him, but they kind of booed the whole team off the pitch, which I don't agree with. I don't know. It's probably a debate for another day, but I don't see any help in going to a football game and booing your team off the pitch at half time or at any time. It just doesn't make any sense to me. You encourage them. Yeah, you sing their name, or you go, come on, you can do this, but you don't boo them.
Stop. That's sport. Full stop.
Yeah, and
why would you go to? It makes me sick. Because I mean, you see it in every walk of life nowadays. We're probably going to get this sort of thing on Twitch in the coming weeks. We're going to get guys coming on here and saying, we're boring, or with this, with that, or the other. We chat a load of old crap.
Stop talking about fucking Chelsea, man.
Well, I mean, I've wanted to say that, but I'll wait
I'll
until
wait
until we stop streaming. But no, but the ultra critical, the attacks. There's such a lack of encouragement now in sport and in general. And it's been brought on by this whole I don't know I don't know what's brought it on, but you just had to look and see I don't know, it just the criticism was just so unjust. And as you say, that game against Algeria, yeah, it was a poor performance, don't get me wrong, but I mean, Algeria weren't a bad side at the time, and all they done was they just sat deep. They done what so many teams do when they play Barcelona nowadays. They just sit deep, they win those 50-50s, then they try and counter, it breaks down, then they sit in and they sit back within their formation. It was born from Italian football. That's exactly what they done. And do you know what? It's not Wayne Rooney's fault that he didn't single-handedly beat Algeria that day. It's just the team struggled, and it happens time and time again. There was a difference between a poor performance, and playing against a team that's not going to let you play. Yeah. That
was more to put some and Ringo literally just now they put some kind of counter points against Wayne Rooney, which I suppose we should have a look at before we.
Yeah, I mean, Ringo made an absolute classic point that he scored a lot of goals in qualification, but not. His tournament record was poor. It was very poor, but it started outstanding in Portugal, which was 2004.
So we had Greece. Portugal in 2004, and then
Euros, yeah.
He did well in 2006, as I remember. I think maybe
that was a Winkgate, wasn't it? Was the 2004?
Yes, but the thing that annoyed me about that, and I think this is a problem that England had a lot of, was I went to.
That's media at its best, by the way. That was absolutely shocking.
Yeah, and I went to Chelsea versus Man United at the end of the season, and I don't know if you remember it, but Ferreira slid on Rooney or Carvalho, and they injured him, and a lot of people were going, "Oh my God, Wayne Rooney's going to miss the World Cup." Yeah, and they rushed him back basically, and he just kind of wasn't the same.
Tarsal, didn't he?
I think so. God, think about that now. How on earth was he? How on earth was he?
Yeah, they rushed him back big time. Big time.
And England have been guilty of doing that with their star players, and that's the point, I suppose, that Callum kind of puts out of the epitome of a player being picked on name rather than form, I suppose.
Later in his career, I think with Rooney was injured going in 2006 and shouldn't have played. Yeah, that was Matt Beeman. Was that the broken metatarsal?
Yeah, that was. Yeah,
pretty sure it was. And then it was so 2004 was the Euros, and 2006 was the World Cup that he got injured for. But does that not say more about the player? That he fought back from an injury which was a tricky injury. I mean, a broken metatarsal. I mean, I've never had one. I've only ever had a broken leg. But a broken metatarsal to me seems like a pretty unhealable injury. You can't really do much with it. You just put it in a boot and you just wait for it to heal. And he risked his future playing career, which it must have caught up with him. That's why we've seen Wayne Rooney for the last 5-6 years just dolloping about in midfield, and that's no criticism. But
he's still done it very consistent level.
Should be in the team. Okay, we'll come on to that. But
Crouch, he's got a fantastic goals to game ratio for England. This is difficult. I thought because you said like midfield might be the tricky one, but this one could be
my curveball now is seeming more like I don't know.
What was your curveball? So I think we should put a pin in Rooney for the moment, because I think there's a lot of
I think we should note him in there.
People against having him in the team.
Yeah, so maybe I haven't got a pencil, so I can't pencil him in, but it'll go in the noggin. The beer one, it's cool.
So what was your curveball player?
My curveball was Matt Letizia.
Okay.
I think Letizia never really hit it, obviously, on the England stage because of Alan Shearer, players like that. But for me, I love Matt Letizia. I thought he was just such a unique player. He scored incredible goals, absolutely incredible goals. There was he done like a mazy run, chipped over a few players, and just for me, that man never really kind of got the international recognition that he deserved. Not saying I would have picked him, but I think that he was always a player that I just don't think ever really kind of got the credit that he deserved in an England shirt.
So he's an honourable mention for you then.
He's definitely an honourable mention, yeah. And now I'm totally I'm pulling that curveball out of here, so I'm not picking him. But for me, I mean, someone that embodies football, what we love about football. Matt Letizia was one of those players, So yeah.
Okay, so mentioning his name, and this is one that I kind of think, if we're looking at someone like Wayne Rooney and going, he's not doing it for a tournament level. What about Alan Shearer?
Yeah, totally agree. Once again, I mean, have you seen some of Alan Shearer's goals for Southampton? They were incredible. Incredible. When he first started out, he was insane. He was. I mean, when you watch like Wayne Rooney when he played for Everton against Manchester United, he was incredible. You talk about Lionel Messi and you talk about Cristiano Ronaldo. You watch these players when they were younger; they were just the same. Just unfortunately, I think the coaching and maybe the mentality wasn't the same as those type of players. But you know, that's, as you say, that's another conversation for another day. But Alan Shearer's got to be mentioned. Has to be mentioned. I mean, how he didn't score more goals for England is, you know, it really is a shame. I mean, you could talk about Robbie Fowler.
Yeah, and I think another player that I think probably it's difficult to say. Like, I definitely have him in, but I think he is going. He's a player who's going the right way.
Yeah,
and he is also
Finally,
won a Golden Boot.
Talk about Todd Cantwell.
He's also won a Golden Boot, Harry Kane.
Yeah.
I'd probably have him in there, not just because of the fact that he's won the Golden Boot, because people can make arguments going, well, hang on, look at the goals he scored, who they're against. That's fine. I get that argument.
Just going back, did you say it was 2016 that he played in the Euros?
He did.
4 years ago. So, I mean, he's got tournament experience as well. I mean, like all these players, I mean, so far the ones we've picked, there's only one player that's still currently playing, and that's Raheem Sterling.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think there's a fair shout for Harry Kane to be in there. I mean, the type of player he was as well at the last World Cup. Could you see him possibly getting the best out of, say, a player like Michael Owen? So, say Harry Kane playing slightly deeper, holding the ball up, and then playing those balls, playing them out to the wide players, then getting in the box while Michael Owen's keeping the centre backs busy, while he's making those runs in behind. Kind of like a bit of a Dwight York, Andy Cole mixture. Andy Cole, another English player that just never done it at international level.
Yeah, I think definitely the way that Harry Kane played in the 2018 World Cup, as we discussed a little bit earlier, where he was very selfless. For probably one of the biggest players on the team as well in terms of stardom, I suppose. He was really, you know, selfless in the way he did drop deep, and he won the ball in deeper areas, held it up very well. And I think, someone like Owen, I guess in his younger years when he was incredibly pacey, would have really probably flourished under someone.
Yeah, and the only
like
Ballon d'Or winner that we've mentioned so far.
Who's that? Sorry,
Michael Owen. He won
Michael
the Ballon
Owen,
d'Or, didn't he?
And I think there's another great excuse for him potentially being in there. And the more I'm thinking about the players we've talked about, you know, look at, you know, I suppose it's more performances, not goals, rather than anything. But I suppose, you know, the goal against Argentina, the performance against Germany, you know, based on those things, could we have Michael Owen in there?
Yeah. So I think, you know, we've got there's three that we need to narrow down to two between Wayne Rooney, Harry Kane, and Michael Owen. Gary Lineker's a great shout. Once again, he done it in England shirt, but it's probably just slightly before mine and yours time. I don't know what you think about that. I know we're picking Gaza, but
yeah, I think Gaza just sneaks in there for the '96 tournament.
He's on the snack,
but I think just about. I was just in the hospital at that time, being delivered. No,
another story for another day.
Yeah, exactly. How Matt was birthed, the talk show. I think
down the local special with Mrs. Huggins.
God no. So basically, moving swiftly on to
Thank you.
So Lineker, I suppose a little bit before our time.
Another honourable mention.
I guess the ones we're looking at are probably Rooney, Owen, Kane,
and Kane,
and Shearer. Are we putting Shearer in there, or are we just putting
I think Shearer just didn't quite do it at national level. You know, once again, a bit like Robbie Fowler, a bit like Andy Cole, Teddy Sheringham, just didn't quite make it at national level to be mentioned in that top bracket. I think actually Harry Kane's he's surmounted all of those, you know, in my opinion, and what he's done for England and at club level as well. So, as you say, it's between Harry Kane, Wayne Rooney, and Michael Owen. I think you kind of got to pick Michael Owen. I'd personally pick Michael Owen based on, you know, his best, based upon his ability. He was one of those players. He put fear into the opposition. If he didn't get the injuries that he had, and then later on in his footballing career lose the interest that he did, he could have been talked about as one of the best players we've ever seen. With that pace, with his he was so clinical in front of goal. And he's if we're going to play two up front, you kind of want someone who is on the defender's shoulder, just constantly being a threat. And I mean, his pace was electric. It was incredible. So for me, I think you'd probably have to play Michael Owen as kind of your most forward player.
Yeah, and I guess next to then maybe we'd have Harry Kane based on, I don't know. I think Morster and Gringo and Matt Beeman have maybe done a relatively good job of persuading me anyway out of my initial kind of he would be the first first name on the sheet to actually not having him there at all, because I think based on probably the tournaments, probably aside from 2004, maybe I'd say, and also some of the things later on, leadership, things like that. I think he did have a kind of rough end of the stick towards, like you said. I think that's probably marred it as well, like with Terry. But I suppose also if we're looking at a team that we want to work on paper, when we talked about if we're going to have Michael Owen in there, we probably want someone who can hold the ball up and do that. And obviously we know Kane can do that. He's won the Golden Boot at a major tournament, and he, I think, could eclipse Wayne Rooney's goal scoring record. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, I think Peter Crouch obviously got a few votes in there, but I'm sorry, he doesn't make it in.
Just for the
meters of magic, but doesn't quite make it.
What was I need to find Peter Crouch's record for England. Peter Crouch.
Something stupid, wasn't it?
I'm going to have a quick look. But yeah, that all I can think of.
Records, and does Ricky Lambert get in there as well?
Yeah, all I can think is that goal that he scored against Jamaica. Was it the friendly?
Peter Crouch, was that when he done the robot? Or?
Yeah, that's right. That's when he did the robot, when he scored the penalty. So his
an idiot.
His record is 42 caps,
22 goals,
and 22 goals.
Shit.
So
yeah, but it's not all about goals, is it?
Those goals came against, let's see, Uruguay in a friendly, Hungary in a friendly, a hat-trick against Jamaica in a friendly, a goal against Trinidad and Tobago. Obviously that was in 2006. And then a friendly, he scored 2 goals against Greece, 2 goals against Andorra, a goal against Macedonia, I think that is, a goal against Estonia, a goal against Austria, against Croatia. All of these have been friendlies apart from Estonia and Croatia, which were qualifiers. World Cup qualifier Ukraine, World Cup qualifier Andorra, 2 goals against Belarus in a World Cup qualifier, 2 goals against Egypt in a friendly, goal against Mexico in a friendly, and finally a goal against France in a friendly.
So it's fair to say he scored all of his goals against the elite of world football. Yeah,
I'd say the majority of them. That's fair enough.
For now. I've never rated Peter Crouch.
I think he's
a better talk show host than he is a footballer.
I think it's a little bit harsh. I think he's offered some. He's definitely one of those players that it's weird. Well, obviously, I don't know if you listen to the Peter. I don't know if you watch the Peter Crouch or listen to the Peter Crouch podcast, but when he sort of talks about his time at Liverpool, when he has a little bit of a barren dry run, and that probably made his career kind of what it was, that kind of laughing stock, I suppose.
I mean, it was just unfortunate, to be fair. I mean, when he went to Liverpool, he was, one of England's most promising strikers. And it's a shame it didn't really work out for him, in all fairness, because I mean, he's maybe what England needed at the time, and it's what we kind of needed as a team. So no, I mean, I take back everything I said about him.
Good, because he's watching.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, he better not be. Christ, get a knock at the door and there's just a pair of legs there. Like, fuck.
God.
Peter, what are you doing here?
Exactly. And I think so basically we've decided I think, on our team, have
I
we?
think we've decided. So we have, so we're going with Owen and Kane up front.
Yeah,
We
okay.
agreed on that. So
We'll go with Owen and Kane.
our team, written down on paper, how well anyone can see that. So we have David Seaman in goal, with Gary Neville at right back, Rio Ferdinand and John Terry partnered in the centre, with Ashley Cole at left back. David Beckham, golden balls at right midfield, along with Steven Gerrard and Paul Gascoigne in centre midfield. That'd be a good night out. And Raheem Sterling on the left midfield, with Michael Owen partnering Harry Kane up front, which has got a lot of goals in it. So that's that.
Who's the captain?
Dead and buried. Who would captain that side? Crap. That's a good question. That is a good question. Because out of all those, I was going to say, cause out of all of those,
1, 2, 3, 4. We've got 4 captains. 4, I think.
Captains.
So the ones I've got down.
Terry, Beckham, Kane.
Was Ferdinando?
Did Ferdinando the captain of the team? Sterling's
I don't know.
captain of the team as well, isn't he?
I don't know if he was ever. You know when they named the captains, like the official one. He might have had the armband. I don't know if Ferdinand. He might have done.
Cool.
Forgive me if he was.
No,
but
I think you're right. I think he was only in friendlies and things like that. So, who would we name as captain then?
So you've got Terry, Gerrard, Beckham, and Kane, who actually were captains. So you'd maybe say it was one of those guys who actually did the job. Would you say?
Yeah, I'd agree on that. I'm not sure about Kane. I think for me, as a footballer, as someone who plays football, your striker should be a goal scorer. He should be allowed to do his job, and you shouldn't burden him with a captaincy. I don't know how you feel about that, but I don't think strikers should ever lead the team. They should be allowed to play naturally and play their game. Strikers are instinct players, or forwards even. They shouldn't be burdened with captaincy, in my opinion. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I think it's always, in my opinion, probably one of a goalkeeper, a central defender.
Yeah.
Or to be fair, any defender. I think a defender.
Yeah, I'll say a defender.
And then a central midfielder, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe one of those, I would say, as a captain.
So Terry or Gerrard, are we saying?
Yeah, because I think as good as Beckham was, I think he is probably a little bit more of a figurehead than a proper captain, in my opinion. He was, like you said, the poster boy of English football, and and he kind of led a little bit more by example. So we're talking about Gerrard versus Terry. Obviously, it's difficult for me not to pick anyone other than John Terry, just because.
If he was,
I feel like the way he organises defences and things like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say if he was captain, if this was my side, I'd be picking John Terry. I think that he'd done a great job both at club and an international level of organising the side. So, he's shown now, with his coaching. Excuse me. So I'm all for giving Terry the captain armband. If you,
I'm obviously, for anyone watching, I'm not trying to kind of influence my decision based on the shirt I'm wearing. But I do genuinely believe.
I'm joking.
Oh, it's blue for Everton, but the
Ew, I'm not talking anymore.
God, exactly. But no, I think John Terry.
Yeah.
Even if I take myself out of those Chelsea shoes, like I've said before, I just think, like you just sort of said, captain-wise, I think he would be a good fit. I just wonder, would he be able to keep Paul Gascoigne under control?
I would have suggested we pick Paul Gascoigne as our captain. He likes to drink. He'd get all the players together, wouldn't he?
That's a wild card, isn't it?
Yeah.
Should we just do that?
Yeah, let's just do that. Let's go crazy. Paul Gascoigne is captain. That's it. Yeah, and we'll pick a bench of Titus Bramble with I don't know.
Adam Johnson.
With Adam Johnson and Stuart Downing. Because I get them confused, so I can just, if I was the manager, I'd just say, just warm up, go on as left midfield.
Steve Sidwell
and Luke Chadwick. And our goalkeeper would have to be Rob Green.
Yeah.
And he would wear a kit all the time. Just like he did at Chelsea. That's a pretty good team.
Leroy Lisa as well.
Oh, what a player. Man. And Todd Cantwell was the water boy.
Todd Cantwell, assistant manager / cheerleader.
He's got the girly hippie locks, so that'd work well.
Yeah.
Okay, so we picked our team. The chat, I think there was only one person that took me up on my offer of deciding on a front line, which was Ringo El Gringo. Just saying, if we're thinking of going for a 4-3-3, then it would have to be Kane flanked by Sterling and Sancho. 4-4-2 would be Kane and Rashford, but if Tammy Abraham continues his good form, or if Mason Greenwood can break through next season, I could see Rashford being dropped for either one of them. So based now, say we're sat in Gareth Southgate's waistcoat, who would be your front line and why?
Well, first of all, if I was sat on Gareth Southgate's waistcoat, I'd be a bit worried about it creasing going into the next tournament. But
Doesn't he look like Nigel Thornberry? Has anyone else noticed that? If he grew a tash? Ew. No,
he might do, to be fair. He's got a funny nose, hasn't he?
Yeah, nose. Hell of a cock.
I'd probably say... I'd probably look at Kane. You'd probably have to look at Kane up front for England. And I'd say probably flanked by...
as well, I suppose.
Flanked by two players, I'd probably say...
so we'd have a front three?
Yeah, I'd probably just say Sterling and Rashford, probably.
Okay. So no place for Sancho?
I haven't seen enough of him, to be honest. I have seen of him for England, he's done well, and it seems like a lot of people are going to go for him in the summer. But for now, if I had to pick my team now, obviously the Euros would just be coming up if it wasn't for COVID-19. But if they were, I would be probably picking Rashford and Sterling. But I think also there's great options with Sancho and maybe Hudson-Odoi as well. Obviously, you've got Tammy Abraham who can come in there as well. So it's nice to be able to pick essentially two forward lines. One of them slightly less experienced than the other, but still I think very good. Yeah,
youthful enthusiasm. And the nice thing is, I think we've had a lot of players come through all at the same time, haven't we? You know, we've had Tammy Abraham come through at the same time as Callum Hudson-Odoi and Jadon Sancho. They're all about the same sort of age. Same with Marcus Rashford. So you're hoping that some of that experience at lower levels will transfer into the senior level. You know, that's certainly what I'd hope. I mean, with Harry Kane as well. So you know, let's not forget that him and Raheem Sterling, they're not exactly old. So I'm sure they've played alongside some of these youngsters as well at the lower levels. I mean, I can't argue to that. As I say, I mean, there's got to be honourable mentions, as you say, for Tammy Abraham and those players. So, and of course Todd Cantwell. So, quickly moving on. While we round the show off, because we've been going nearly 2 hours now, dude. Nearly 2 hours. Monday was we penciled in an hour and we've done an hour and a half, and now we're nearly creeping up to the 2 hours mark. So
this is what England does here.
This is what England does. It just
on and on and on.
I know. I mean, we've not slit our wrists yet. I've only had one pint, so
not yet.
You know, it's quite impressive. I'm quite proud that we've made it this far, dude. So while I round this out, I just obviously want to throw it out into the chat and just say if there's anything you guys want to bring up quickly before we begin to round off the show, please throw it into the chat now so we can try and debate it a bit further. If not, we're going to be back again on Monday at 7:30. We'll be back to our normal talking about current affairs and also throwing different things out there. We'll probably maybe try some of these fancy teams, and I'd certainly like to discuss what you think about who would finish as the PFA Player of the Year. If we were to pull the flag out now, because that seems to be something that we've brought up in the last two shows, including this one, that we can't quite agree on whether it's going to be Jordan Henderson or Kevin De Bruyne. So right, moving on, I want to make 2 points, or get your opinion on two things before we round it off, and that is, who do you think has been, once again talking about in our time watching England, who do you think has been England's most underrated player, and who do you think has been their most overrated player?
What a question.
Yeah, I know, a toughie. So start with what overrated. I think overrated is a good one to start with.
Yeah.
Or maybe not necessarily overrated, but kind of who did not quite meet our expectations.
Who didn't meet expectations? I'd say Frank Lampard, probably.
Okay.
Maybe for the reasons I said earlier, for the team that we were putting out, and we came across midfield, and he just couldn't, for one reason or another, hit the same heights that he hit for Chelsea.
Yeah.
For England, he obviously still, I think, did a good enough job for England, and it was serviceable. But I just think it wasn't anywhere up to the standard that we were used to of that player. And yeah, I think you've probably got to look at him. In terms of other players, I'm just trying to think of some. Yeah, so difficult, because the ones that, a lot of them we've put in our team, I'm kind of thinking of as well. Like, I know we've had good moments from Michael Owen, and he's in our team because of what he's done in specific moments and how good he might be at the peak of his powers.
Yeah.
But again, it's someone who I think, mostly because he's been blighted by injuries, he has not done what everyone I think would have expected him to do after seeing that goal against Argentina. So that's probably another player that I think maybe not reach those heights.
I would go with Jack Wilshere. I think when he
It's a very good show, actually.
Yeah, I think when he first come through at Arsenal, I can remember when in their pre-season, a friend of mine at work mentioning him, saying, you need to watch this player. You have to watch this player. He is something else. And then that season, I think he kind of had his breakthrough, and he was incredible. He was such a clever footballer. I don't think I've ever been excited about an England player as much as I was until I saw Jack Wilshere play. At that time, a youngster coming through. For one reason or another, it's just not quite transferred. He had a couple of half-decent seasons at Arsenal. Once again, injuries, blighted by injuries, left, right and centre. Still probably watching live the England games I've gone to, and I've gone to a fair few, I can think, it's probably moving into the double digits. He is the one player who I've seen live in an England shirt who, for me, performed. And that was against Brazil in a friendly at Wembley. I think we won 2-1, and he scored both the goals, and he was outstanding that day. He run the game against Brazil, of all teams. So, talking about the Peter Crouch goals, he only really scored against one decent team, and that was France. So, he... for me, the player that was most overrated or didn't quite reach it was, for me, Jack Wilshere. So the most underrated player to ever play in an England shirt.
We talked about him a bit earlier. I think we might come to the same conclusion.
Yep.
I think maybe Owen Hargreaves. He was playing in Germany at the point when he started. Yeah, when no one else was really playing abroad. No. And he was not a bit of I suppose he was a bit of a scapegoat at the time, as far as I remember, because he wasn't doing any of the pretty work, and he was sort of, doing the sensible stuff, I suppose, which we wanted to see, I suppose, more swashbuckling performances like Lampard and Gerrard could offer. And that just didn't happen. But I think for the work he did at the time, I think he was a brilliant player for England when he was called upon, and I just think he wasn't rated as much as he should have been. Yeah,
I think he's a great shout. I'd probably go with either one of Michael Carrick. I think he never quite made it. I don't know. The job he done in an England shirt. It was very much, as I say, that kind of average performance. Very much middle of the road. You never saw him have a bad performance. You never saw him have a good performance. So I don't think he ever gets a mention alongside Paul Scholes and Frank Lampard and Steven Gerrard in that debate. But then the other one, which of course we've talked about, quite extensively earlier on when we was picking our side, was Jordan Henderson. And I think if he continues the way he is, if he can have 2 or 3 years of good form for Liverpool and at international level, I think he could be a serious shout for being one of those players that constantly gets overlooked because he's just not fashionable in the same way that Owen Hargreaves is.
Yeah. No, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's a bit of a split decision on that one. I can totally agree with the Owen Hargreaves thing, and I'd maybe say him, purely based on, because he has had some really good performances for England as well, but he never ever comes into the discussion of that centre midfield debate. Once again, he got curtailed towards the end with injuries. Obviously, at his time at Manchester United, and where he was used as a pin cushion, apparently. So, yeah, I'd say Owen Hargreaves in that respect. So, right, just turning over to the chat. Ringo Gringo, future England manager, how Lampard, Gerrard, or someone else. So I presume we're talking about who's going to succeed from Gareth Southgate. So we're talking next 3-4 years. I'd say.
I reckon it'll be after the next tournament, in my opinion.
Do you think?
Yeah, I think it might be. Obviously, I can't predict the future, but I think there will be an expectation of reaching the semi-finals for the Euros, considering they're going to be at Wembley.
Yeah,
and based on the World Cup, based on the fact that we're at Wembley and the fact that we'll be kind of more favourites, and I think we might not get that far. So I have a feeling that he might go after that. He might resign, or he might get sacked. Based on that, because he might sort of say, "Well, look, I feel like I've taken the team as far as it can go."
Yeah.
And in my opinion, the next man after that will be. Oh my God! I've been thinking of him since I read that question. I've literally been like, "Oh, it'll be him." I've forgotten about him. It's Steve Holland, the current assistant manager of England. He was previously assistant manager at Chelsea.
Okay.
He's very highly rated amongst his profession, and I think we might get into a position now where England start employing from within for their manager jobs because of what's happening and how they like it. And because the thing is with Southgate as well, I think as good as a job as he is, I still think there probably is some element to him being somewhat of a yes man for the FA and for people to go, we want certain things, and for him to go, okay, fine, I'll do that. Whereas I think, we could pick other managers who might want to do things their own way. I think obviously there was an issue with Allardyce where he probably might have been one of those characters had he carried on longer, if he obviously wasn't a bit of an idiot. But I think when you look at the other managers like Eddie Howe, Lampard and Gerrard, I think Eddie Howe is not doing very well at Bournemouth at the moment. I think he's obviously a good manager, and I think, but the problem is I think because he has done well with Bournemouth, a team where he has been given quite a fair amount to work with. I know obviously they're a small club, but he's been given a fair amount to work with in terms of transfer budgets and players and things like that. He's done a good job, but I don't think it's worth giving him the keys to the national job, in my opinion. And then when you look at Lampard and Gerrard, they just started out. You can see at the moment both managers are very, very raw. They could be in the future, and I'm sure to be fair, all three of them would probably jump at the chance they've offered to manage the club. Sorry, the nation. But I don't think that they're really kind of up for debate at the moment. But who knows, in the future maybe. But then again, all three managers could end up being fairly mediocre managers in the future. We don't know that Lampard, Gerrard and Howe might fail as managers, and they might end up being League One Championship managers as at best, really. Yeah,
definitely. I was going to say, I think England's next move would be to take someone who's maybe a little bit more seasoned and not as young. I mean, obviously, Gareth Southgate is young as a manager. Which, I don't know, it kind of brings up that debate of, do you take a club manager, do you take someone who's managed international level more often than he has a club? So he's got more of experience with the setup of how international works as opposed to club football, because obviously all three of those, they currently ply their trade at club football. So, I mean, there's lots of things you need to take into account there as players coming in and out, and things like that. So
let me put this name to you, Sean.
Oh, God, here we go.
Jose Mourinho.
Do you know what? Like, genuinely, the whole time you were talking, I was thinking Jose Mourinho. Because didn't he say, like, years ago, I'd love to manage England or something?
He had an interview. He fucked off the FA. He when he left Chelsea, he went, I'll have an interview with the FA. Go on then, made kissy faces at them, and they went, no, I'm going to Inter Milan. And
love him.
Yeah, that would have been interesting at the time.
Man United legend now.
Yeah, and so that would be. I feel like as much as I love the man, or loved the man, now he's Tottenham manager. I don't so much, but he. Well, we're
not allowed to say it on here.
Not now. It's not suitable, but yeah, basically, I think he would undo all the hard work that Southgate has done towards
You think? Yeah.
in the team.
Wouldn't surprise
The
me.
coat of use, the PR that they have, the goodwill that the England
Yeah.
team have amongst everyone, it would be absolutely horrific.
Converting Jadon Sancho to a left wing back. Yeah, that's what we want to see.
Oh, we've ended the show on a really low note now.
Playing
Thinking
Eric
about
Dyer
Jose
as
Mourinho's
a
England.
centre forward.
In 2006, it seemed like a really good idea, or 2007, whenever it was.
Yeah, I know. It
They really
didn't it?
good
At the time,
idea.
it's like he is the guy.
But now it feels like it's worse than Sam Allardyce being our manager again.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Do you know what, Ringo El Gringo? That's an awesome question because I just can't pick anyone. Gary Neville.
God, he didn't have a really good time at Valencia. Did he?
Valencia. Yeah, well, his brother's coming up. He's gonna need a job soon, so maybe.
Yeah, he will.
Yeah, right. No, I'm being totally stupid. I can't think of anyone. I really can't. I think Southgate will stay for a while yet. I can see him solidifying his place with England and staying on for a good couple of years. I know I think there'll be a bit of a witch hunt when they struggle at the Euros, but I think they'll stick by him. I think the good feelings of the Nations League and the World Cup won't evaporate that quickly. So I think England want to keep him.
Yeah,
in my opinion. Cool. Right. Chat. Anything else you want us to talk about? If not, we're out of here. I've got beer to drink.
Yes, exactly. That's all we seem to be doing on these weeknights now.
Dude,
it's like
it's down the local. I was gonna say it's the name of the show. We've got to have a beer.
What time is your acceptable time to start drinking in the day, Sean?
My acceptable time to start drinking when I wake up.
I know. That could be any time now. Who knows?
No, my acceptable time drinking. No, I don't drink past 5. It's still a normal weekday. What about you? Has yours changed?
Yeah, we had a discussion in a group chat of mine I'm in, and the kind of consensus was full. Because to be fair, like when I stopped working over this period, it was kind of like, oh God, what do I do now? So I sort of thought, it's midday, the sun's up, I'll sit outside in bed, and then I sort of like,
it's become a thing.
Suddenly realised I was running out of beer, so I was like, oh God, I need to like slow this right down.
Yeah.
So I went from caning it on a weekend to just drinking all the beer over a week. So
which is better.
Yeah, I suppose.
See, now we get into the tough stuff. I mean, it's all well and good picking an England centre midfield, but which one would you rather pick? Drinking constantly all week or just caning it at the weekends?
I thought you were going to say which England player would you go out with for a piss up?
Oh, well, we all agreed on that, Gaza.
Not now,
no,
obviously.
No, James Milner all day long.
Milner, you have a laugh.
I'd have an extra strong Ribena with him. Yeah.
Oh God, that'd be so boring. I'd jump in front of a train again.
Could you imagine telling jokes for James Milner?
Oh Jesus Christ! I'm depressed now.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. But having a comedy night with Matt Tucker. I hope he's listening, because if he is listening, he'll know what I mean. So a classic Matt joke is, "What do you get if you run over a juice?" It's just not funny. Just not funny. So I think on that extravagant note, yeah, Matt's tuned out. He's ended the Skype call, I can see.
I'm still here.
No,
just tuned out in my mind.
Don't blame you. Right, chat's gone quiet, so I'm going to say a massive thank you, obviously, to the people that have got involved tonight. Interestingly, it's a total different group of people from what we had on Monday, which is super cool. I hope you guys can come back on Monday, and hopefully we'll get the regulars that were here on the Monday that I was hoping to be here tonight that haven't arrived. So because you guys have been super awesome, just throwing ideas out there, been throwing the sort of debates around a bit more, so I super appreciate that. Huge thank you to Ollie and to Callum for the follows and getting involved. Ringo La Gringo, thank you so much for getting involved. Please don't be afraid to follow, and same with Matt B Man, please follow. And we're going to pick this up again. We'll be back for our regular thing on a Monday night. I say this was a bit of a special, talking about England, and on Monday night we'll be talking about the general transfers, what's currently going on with football. I know obviously Bundesliga announced today that they will be they plan on restarting on the 9th of May, I think it is, so obviously we'll pick that up again on Monday. Ringo La Gringo, thank you dude, thank you so much for the follow. I hope you're going to join us again on Monday. That'd be super awesome. Keep super awesome joining in on the chat today. Anything from you, Matt? Please wrap it up for me, my friend. Obviously, a massive thank you to you. Thank you so much.
No, you're more than welcome, and I love doing this because I've got absolutely fuck all else to do.
Oh wow, dude, you really know how to treat a guy. Thank you.
It's been
Yeah,
good.
I'm only talking to you because I've got no one else to talk to. Yeah,
Exactly.
thanks, Matt. Yeah, lucky too. Yeah.
I know. Sasha's like, Matt, what are you going to do? Oh God, I've got to talk to a bloody Man U fan again for a couple of hours. No, it's been good again, and yeah, it's interesting doing it now because obviously there's not any football happening now, so it's nice that we're able to kind of squeeze as much out of it as we can, and see what happens. So
yeah, definitely.
Hopefully next week, we'll get everyone involved, and it'll be another good show. But yeah, cheers everyone.
Definitely, yeah. So we sincerely hope you join in and get involved. Be sure to get the beers in at the weekend, ready for the Monday night show with us. Right. So au revoir, people of Twitch.